Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we take a whole heap of information, really sift through it, and try to give you the core insights. Today, we're tackling, well, it's a huge puzzle, isn't it? How our actions create these ripple effects, the human consequences that shape everything around us. We're talking about, how laws get made, why some communities flourish and others, well, struggle. But here's the twist for today. We're looking at how artificial intelligence might be this new lens, a tool to actually help us decode the really intricate mechanics behind it all. Our mission for this deep dive, it's pretty ambitious, I'll admit. We want to unpack how AI can help us understand the many layers of how human consequences unfold over time, past, present, and, what might be coming. And to do that, we've drawn from this amazing stack of sources, different disciplines, everything from philosophy, biology, psychology.
Sociology, physics, math.
Exactly. Even environmental ethics, how we think about nature. It's really a journey into what makes us tick, collectively and individually.
And what's truly remarkable, I think, is AI's sheer power in this context. I mean, imagine a tool that can just process vast amounts of different kinds of data, text, images, sound, spot patterns the human mind just couldn't see, and then simulate these incredibly complex systems. This lets it uncover connections, predict those ripple effects, way beyond our own cognitive limits.
So it's more than just crunching numbers.
Oh, definitely. It's like a super-powered microscope for looking at human systems. It helps make sense of how our rules, our choices, our environments, how they all interact to produce outcomes.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Our sources, they really start by digging into the philosophical roots, right? The idea of consequences. It becomes clear pretty quickly that, our actions, even the structures we build in the society, they're often driven by trying to get specific results.
Anticipating outcomes.
Yeah, like consequentialism, judging an action by its outcome. And its famous cousin, utilitarianism, aiming for the greatest good for the greatest number. But what surprised me reading through the sources was how AI simulations kind of revealed a subtle tension there.
Exactly. That's a key point. Our sources show that while aiming for the greatest good sounds straightforward, maybe even noble, AI models running countless scenarios, they showed something interesting. A purely utilitarian approach, if you don't consider other ethical frameworks, can sometimes lead to, surprising downsides, especially when you're trying to optimize for everyone.
Right.
It's like trying to balance this really complex scale perfectly, and AI can show you where it's most likely to tip, even if you have the best intentions. It reveals those hidden trade-offs.
That makes a lot of sense. It sort of highlights how incomplete our own knowledge always is, doesn't it? I mean, every policy, every intervention, it can set off this cascade of ripples that are just incredibly hard for us to predict alone.
Right. And that's where the whole science of human consequences has to kind of embrace uncertainty. Our sources show how AI can bring in robust methods for looking at risks, running different what-if scenarios, and learning as it goes, iteratively.
So it's not about finding the one perfect answer.
No, not at all. It's more about continuously adapting. Think of it like a flexible framework that's always learning, always adjusting as new information comes in.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit then. The deep dive also took us into the biological and genetics side of things. It's pretty fascinating how much our behavior, from our basic temperament to how we engage with the world, is influenced by our genetic variations.
Yes, but what the research really underscores is this dynamic interplay. It's not just nature or nurture. It's nature and nurture constantly shaping each other.
How so?
Well, for example, a child's inherited temperament might actually change the way parents or peers respond to them. And that response, in turn, influences their development further. Our sources show how AI is getting better at modeling these incredibly sophisticated feedback loops. It moves us beyond simple cause and effect to show how genetics might predispose us, sure, but the environment often plays a huge role in the final outcome. It's a level of nuance we're really only just starting to get a handle on.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Knowing AI can potentially untangle those complex gene-environment interactions, it suggests maybe a future where we could get really precise insights into what makes each of us tick.
Absolutely. By mapping these interactions, AI could highlight, say, how certain environmental factors might uniquely impact people with specific genetic markers, leading to very different outcomes than for others without those markers. It takes us from broad generalizations towards a much more personalized understanding, and that could help tailor support maybe in early childhood development or education.
Our sources then shifted to the psychological mechanisms involved, how we think, our beliefs, how we manage emotions. You think about Piaget's stages of cognitive development. These classic ideas show how our thinking literally changes as we grow, and that shapes how we process everything and react.
Yeah, and beyond those formal stages, what's really intriguing is how we all develop these deeply ingrained personal rules and belief systems. These are often unconscious, like those "if I do X, then Y will happen" assumptions, or deep self-definitions, like "I am the kind of person who..."
Right.
Our sources suggest AI might actually start to infer and model these crucial internal drivers. Imagine AI analyzing patterns in behavior, emotional responses, and then offering personalized insights to maybe help people reframe some of those internal rules that aren't serving them well. Almost like a, I don't know, digital coach for your thought patterns.
That's a remarkable idea for enhancing well-being. Okay, next we kind of zoomed out, looking at sociological frameworks, specifically something researchers call social physics. This is where they apply mathematical tools, sometimes borrowed from physics, to understand crowds, large-scale social things. The basic idea being that while one person might seem unpredictable, collective human behavior can actually show remarkable patterns.
And this is an area where AI really excels, especially in predicting those large-scale human consequences. Our sources detail how AI, using models that track how ideas or behaviors spread, some epidemiology for trends, can help us understand things like how does a new fashion catch on, or how are collective decisions made in a city.
Interesting.
It's like seeing the underlying currents in society, and AI helps spot those. It suggests that even systems that look chaotic might have underlying laws that AI can help uncover.
So we've talked to drivers of consequences, but what about the actual architecture of society? The rules, norms, laws? Our sources traced how rules evolved, from ancient codes like Hammurabi right up to modern regulations. And then there are social norms. Those unwritten, self-enforcing rules about what's acceptable, they often evolve dynamically through trial and error.
And these norms, they're basically society's own adaptive mechanisms, right? Designed to manage consequences, provide stability. But AI analysis, according to the sources, reveals that these norms can also sometimes lock in outcomes that aren't ideal. They can perpetuate issues.
How so?
Well, AI can analyze norms as dynamic systems and maybe identify tipping points where a small shift in behavior or belief could trigger a much larger change across a whole community. It helps us see how beliefs and emotions kind of weave together to create these collective standards.
That brings us to the psychology of rule breaking. It's often not just simple defiance, is it? It's more complex: personality, early life experiences, peer pressure, cultural factors. They all seem to play a role.
Right. And sociological theories like Merton's strain theory suggest that sometimes deviance comes from a mismatch between what society tells you to want and the actual means you have to achieve it. And what's critical here is that rule breaking, ironically, often acts as a feedback loop to existing consequences. For example, negative outcomes like trauma or inequality can directly contribute to nonconformity or rule breaking.
Okay.
Our sources suggest AI might help distinguish between destructive deviance and what you might call constructive nonconformity situations, where challenging norms actually leads to positive systemic change.
So sometimes breaking a rule points out a flaw in the rule itself.
Exactly. It can push society to adapt, to evolve.
So AI could potentially analyze the consequence profile of existing rules, identify ones that consistently lead to bad outcomes, and maybe suggest adaptations.
Precisely. That level of analysis could really help refine our societal frameworks. However, and this is important, a purely outcome-driven approach, where the ends always justify the means, that can be a tricky path.
Right.
Our sources really emphasize that AI models need to integrate a broader sense of right and wrong, not just efficiency. It's about making sure the pursuit of good outcomes doesn't inadvertently create new negative societal impacts down the road.
That makes sense. Our deep dive also touched on nature's rules and how humans connect with the environment. Looking at different cultural views, you have anthropocentric views, humans first, versus more ecocentric views, emphasizing nature's intrinsic value, the interconnectedness of it all.
And indigenous environmental ethics often offer this really profound perspective, rooted in a deep reciprocal relationship with nature, seeing nature not just as resources, but as a living entity we're part of. Concepts like the Oromo people's Safu or Hawaiian traditions viewing Earth as an ancestor, they highlight this deep responsibility to nurture all life. Our sources show that nature's rules are essentially fundamental ecological principles. Violating them has severe consequences like climate change, biodiversity loss. And AI, by integrating ecological models with human behavioral models, can help predict and maybe mitigate some of those environmental impacts.
And this leads into adaptive governance, right? Humanity's attempt to kind of co-evolve our rules and management practices with nature's dynamic systems.
Yes, and AI can enhance this process significantly, maybe by providing real-time monitoring and predictive modeling for environmental changes.
So it helps us manage the consequences of our environmental actions more effectively.
Hopefully, yes, building a more balanced relationship, leading to more sustainable, thriving communities in the long run.
Okay, so bringing this all together with all this foundational knowledge about consequences, how exactly does AI fit into understanding and maybe even shaping them? Our sources point to AI as this powerful scientific instrument, especially with the advances in large language models. They seem to be transforming social science research.
They are. They can simulate human-like responses at a scale we've never seen before. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The fundamental shift towards something called causal AI.
Okay, what's that?
Well, traditional machine learning is great at spotting correlations. People who buy X also tend to like Y, but it often struggles with the Y.
Right, correlation isn't causation.
Exactly. Causal AI, on the other hand, tries to get at the underlying mechanisms. It incorporates interventions, asks what-if questions. If we actively change X, what then happens to Y? And that's critical for really understanding human consequences, because knowing the why is what allows for targeted, effective interventions.
And didn't the sources mention something called the Centaur model? Trained on millions of real decisions, it supposedly predicts human thought and behavior with pretty high accuracy, even in new situations.
Yes, models like that point towards the emergence of what you might call virtual laboratories for studying human cognition and behavior.
Wow.
Absolutely. These virtual environments suggest a future where AI could rapidly prototype social interventions or policy changes, test their consequences in simulation before you roll them out in the real world.
So policymakers could, say, simulate a new education program's effects.
Potentially, yes. Simulate its effect on student outcomes, maybe even trace potential ripple effects on community health. This could really accelerate social science research, leading to more informed, maybe more effective decision-making.
But for AI to really be useful like that, its processes can't just be a black box, right? That seems crucial. Which brings us to explainable AI, or XAI, making AI's decisions clear, understandable.
Transparency is absolutely paramount, especially in high-stakes areas like public policy or those personalized interventions we talked about. By demystifying how AI works, XAI builds trust. It allows for human oversight. If AI is going to tell us about human consequences, it needs to be able to explain how it reached those conclusions. Without XAI, AI's insights, no matter how potentially profound, can't be fully trusted or integrated, especially where people's well-being is concerned.
Which leads us finally to ethical AI governance. These rapid advances definitely necessitate some strong guardrails. AI bias is a huge concern, isn't it? Skewed results because the data it learned from had human biases baked in.
It's a critical issue. It means AI could inadvertently perpetuate existing societal inequalities rather than just analyzing them neutrally.
Yeah.
Which raises a big question for all of us. How do we stop AI from accidentally creating new negative consequences? The UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI, which applies to nearly 200 countries, gives us a global starting point. A standard.
What does it emphasize?
It really pushes for a human rights-centered approach, built on values like human dignity, diversity, environmental flourishing, and supported by principles like proportionality, privacy, safety, and crucial human oversight. These principles can't be an afterthought. They have to be woven into the very fabric of how we design and deploy AI systems.
So AI governance is really about creating smart rules for these intelligent systems themselves to make sure their impact on human consequences is overwhelmingly positive, aligned with human flourishing.
Exactly. So if we try to connect all these dots, this whole analysis, it really reveals that human consequences are never isolated things. They emerge from these incredibly complex interactions. Everything from our philosophical outlooks, our genetic makeup, our psychology, our social structures, even our relationship with nature. And AI offers this new way of seeing. It helps us move beyond just seeing correlations to understanding causal links. That enables more precise interventions, maybe even these virtual labs, to test ideas safely.
And that really underscores why thoughtful AI deployment isn't just nice to have, it's foundational, isn't it? We absolutely have to tackle bias, demand transparency through explainable AI, and build comprehensive governance frameworks. These ethical guardrails are what ensure AI's contributions are trustworthy, fair, and genuinely enhance human well-being and dignity.
Okay, so based on this whole deep dive, we've sort of distilled several actionable recommendations, ways to cultivate better human consequences, linking back to that idea of fostering healthy people in a thriving, balanced world. First, deploy causal AI for policy optimization. Use that ability to simulate, to identify the best leverage points for positive change in education, health, economic stability.
And crucially, recognizing the systemic influence of those social determinants of health, the non-medical factors like where you live, learn, work. Right, the context matters hugely. Second, prioritize human-centered explainable AI, HCX AI. Make sure AI's explanations are clear, understandable, and actually usable by people, especially in sensitive areas like justice or child development. That builds trust, allows oversight.
Essential.
Third, embed ethical AI governance as a core principle. Build frameworks based on human rights, fairness, sustainability right from the start. Rigorous bias detection, strong privacy protocols, not add-ons.
Built in, not bolted on.
Fourth, leverage AI for personalized and adaptive interventions. Use AI to analyze that mix of genetic, environmental, psychological factors for tailored support, maybe in child development, but always with robust privacy protections.
Privacy is key there, absolutely.
Fifth, employ social physics and mathematical models for systemic resilience. Use these tools to understand collective behavior, how norms shift. That can help guide more adaptable societal rules and better strategies for environmental sustainability.
Understanding the macro-level dynamics.
And finally, sixth, foster cross-cultural understanding and conflict resolution through AI. Develop AI tools that can maybe analyze cultural nuances, power dynamics to help facilitate understanding and mediate conflicts. Promote greater cohesion.
So if AI can really help us pinpoint those tipping points for societal change, if it can model this incredibly complex dance between our rules, our values, even our biology, what responsibility does that new level of understanding place on you, the listener, not just to absorb this information, but maybe to actively participate in shaping a more harmonious future? Is there an area in your own life or maybe your community that might benefit from thinking more deeply about consequences, maybe using a more data-informed approach? Something to consider.
This is DigitView.